It was a cold, foggy night in the small town of Willowbrook. The moon hung high in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the old abandoned maze garden on the outskirts of town. The maze, once a beautiful attraction, was now overgrown with thorny bushes and twisted vines. Locals whispered stories about strange noises and shadows seen moving within its walls. But no one dared to enter until that fateful night. Detective Arthur Lane, a tall man with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor, was known for solving the most puzzling cases. He had just finished a long day at his office when a frantic knock interrupted his quiet evening. Standing at the door was Mrs. Clara Bennett, a wealthy widow from the town. "Detective, you must help me," she cried, clutching her shawl tightly. "My nephew, Thomas, has gone missing. He was last seen near the Moonlit Maze. I fear something terrible has happened." Detective Lane grabbed his coat and hat. "Don't worry, Mrs. Bennett. I'll find him." As he approached the maze, the moonlight made the twisted hedges look like ghostly figures. The air was thick with silence, broken only by the rustling of leaves. Lane entered the maze, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. He soon found footprints in the muddy ground, fresh and leading deeper into the maze. Following the trail, Lane noticed something strange. The footprints suddenly stopped, as if Thomas had vanished into thin air. He shone his light around and spotted a small, shiny object on the ground. It was a silver pocket watch with the initials T.B. engraved on it, Thomas Bennett's watch. Lane's sharp eyes caught something else, a faint scratch on the hedge nearby. It looked deliberate, like a marker. He pressed his hand against the hedge and felt it give way slightly. Pushing harder, he discovered a hidden passage. The passage led to a small, open clearing in the center of the maze. There, tied to a chair, was Thomas Bennett. His mouth was gagged, and his eyes widened in relief when he saw Lane. But before the detective could act, a voice echoed through the clearing. "Ah, Detective Lane, I've been expecting you." A figure stepped out of the shadows. It was Mr. Harold Grimes, the town's disgraced banker. Grimes had been fired months ago for stealing money from the bank, and Thomas had been the one to expose him. "Grimes," Lane said calmly, "this is foolish. Let the boy go." Grimes laughed bitterly. "Foolish? No, detective. This is justice. Thomas ruined my life, and now I'll ruin his." Lane took a step closer, his mind racing. He needed to buy time. "You're smarter than this, Grimes. If you harm Thomas, you'll never escape. But if you let him go, we can talk this through." Grimes hesitated, his grip on the knife tightening. Lane noticed a loose stone near his foot. In one swift motion, he kicked the stone toward Grimes, distracting him. Lunging forward, Lane tackled Grimes to the ground, disarming him. Within minutes, Grimes was tied up and Thomas was free. The police, alerted by Mrs. Bennett, arrived shortly after to take Grimes away. As the fog began to lift, Lane stood at the edge of the maze, watching the sunrise. Thomas approached him, still shaken but grateful. "Thank you, detective. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't found me." Lane smiled. "Just doing my job. But remember, Thomas, sometimes the real mystery is why people do the things they do." And with that, the mystery of the Moonlit Maze was solved. But for Detective Lane, it was just another day in the life of a classic detective.